You think one Soviet tank holding off an entire German Panzer division was insane? June 1941. Lithuania. While that famous KV tank was blocking the Crossroads, 3 more Soviet heavy tanks were doing the exact same thing on different roads. And the Germans were so terrified, they gave these tanks a nickname, Gespenst the Ghost. History remembers one legendary tank battle, but I'm about to show you the 3 other nightmare scenarios that happened in the same week that everyone forgot about. Let's fix that. First, the legend you already know, but I'll tell it in 30 seconds, because you need to understand the baseline of crazy to realize what comes next is even worse. June 24th, 1941. 1 KV-1 heavy tank, 1 road, 24 hours. This tank destroyed 12 German trucks and ambushes, wiped out an entire 50-meter anti-tank battery, survived point-blank hits from Panzer tanks, laughed off combat engineers with explosives, finally died only after an 88 mm flak gun hit it from behind, and grenades were thrown through the holes. 1 crew versus the entire German 6th Panzer Division's supply line. That story became a legend. But June 24th wasn't even the first day this happened. Let me take you back 24 hours earlier. June 23rd, 1941. The town of Skaudvilė, northwest of Raseiniai. The German 6th Panzer Division is advancing fast. Blitzkrieg speed. Nothing can stop them. And then Soviet KV tanks roll out of the forest. German Battalion 41 opens fire. 37 memory anti-tank guns. 50 memory guns. Direct hits at 80 meters. The shells bounce off. Not most of them. Not some of them. All of them. The German after-action report is brutally honest. Anti-tank weapons ineffective. Here's where this story goes from heavily armored to absolute nightmare. Some of these KV tanks run out of ammunition. Main gun empty. No shells left. So what do? They accelerate. A German gunner from Motorcycle Battalion 6 later wrote, "We hit it 4 times. I saw the impacts. The tank turned toward us. We thought it would fire. Instead, it drove over our position. I heard my commander scream, then nothing. I ran." These Soviet tanks, out of ammunition, were deliberately hunting German anti-tank positions and crushing them under 45 tons of steel. No shells, just tracks and weight. In 6 hours at Skaudvilė, German Battalion 41 lost 8 anti-tank guns, 4 more anti-tank guns because crews fled. 60% of their anti-armor capability to 4 tanks. But the German commanders didn't panic yet. They thought, okay, heavy tanks. We've seen heavy tanks. Bring up the big guns, problem solved. Except 20 kilometers south, a German Panzer regiment was about to learn these things don't stop when you shoot them. They just get angry. General Erhard Raus commanded the 1st Panzer Regiment. Elite German unit. Experienced crews. Years later, when he wrote about the Eastern Front, you can still feel the frustration when he describes what happened next. German Panzer tanks were running backwards, retreating, not from a Soviet army, from 3 heavy tanks. Here's what happened. KV-1 and KV-2 tanks smashed through the 1st Panzer Regiment screening line and got behind German positions. Raus wrote they advanced almost unconcerned through his regiment's fire. They didn't care that you were shooting at them. Picture this from a German tank commander's perspective. You're firing at 50 meters, close enough to see the rivets on the Soviet tank. Your armor-piercing round hits. Direct impact. Sparks fly. The KV keeps rolling forward. Doesn't even slow down. You fire again. Another hit. Same result. The Soviet tank turns its turret toward you. These KV tanks weren't trying to win a battle. They were behind German lines, threatening. Supply depots. Command posts. Artillery positions. Medical stations. Raus had 2 choices. Keep advancing and let Soviet heavy tanks rampage through his rear. Turn his entire regiment around and hunt them down. For hours, German tanks chased Soviet KVs through their own rear areas. Reports describe it as hunting isolated moving bunkers. Not tanks, bunkers. That move. How they finally stopped them. The only way to kill these things. Step 1. Fire special armor-piercing shells into the tracks at point-blank range. Immobilize it. Step 2. Bring up 88 mm flak guns, the only weapon that could penetrate KV frontal armor. Step 3. Pound the immobilized tank with artillery until something breaks. This wasn't a tank battle. This was a siege against individual tanks. By the end of June 24th, the German 6th Panzer Division had dealt with the famous Crossroads KV killed after 24-hour. 2 KVs at Skaudvilė finally stopped with artillery. 3 KVs in Raus's sector and destroyed. That's 6 separate last stand scenarios in 48 hours. But there's one more story, and this one the Germans still argue about, because nobody's exactly sure if what blocked that road junction was a KV-1 or something even more terrifying. June 25th, 1941 probably, the records conflict. A crossroads north of Raseiniai, 2 German battle groups converging, and 1 Soviet heavy tank sitting exactly where they needed to go. Kampfgruppe Raus and Kampfgruppe von Seckendorf, 2 major German formations, received the same radio message. Road junction occupied by hostile tank. Cannot advance. Requesting heavy artillery. 1 tank. Blocking 2 battle groups. Here's where it gets interesting. Some German reports say it was a KV-1, the standard heavy tank you've been hearing about. Other reports say KV-2. The KV-2 was the KV-1's nightmare older brother. Same invincible armor, but with a massive turret carrying a 152 mm howitzer. Originally designed to destroy bunkers, looked like a small building sitting on tank tracks. If a KV-1 was intimidating, a KV-2 was psychological warfare. This tank held that junction for estimated 8-12 hours. German units couldn't bypass it, bumpy terrain on both sides. Standard anti-tank guns? Useless, we've established this. The tank just sat there, occasionally rotating its turret toward anyone who got too close. Blitzkrieg doctrine took speed. Rapid advances. Quick encirclements. Keep moving before the enemy reacts. And here's 1 Soviet tank causing 12+ hours of delay. 2 battle groups stalled. Massive resource diversion, 88 mm guns, engineers, artillery. In Blitzkrieg terms, that's not a delay. That's a catastrophe. Eventually, heavy artillery was brought forward. The tank was destroyed. This is when German soldiers started calling these tanks Gespenst the Ghost, because you couldn't kill them with normal weapons. They appeared where they shouldn't be. And they haunted German supply lines for days. But by then, the German timetable for the entire Raseiniai operation had been shattered. Now you're probably wondering, if this many KV tanks fought these insane solo battles, why does history only remember 1? Let me show you why. Here's the reality. Historians can clearly document 1 KV tank, the June 24th Crossroads battle. Specific location, specific time. German engineering reports on how they killed it. The other battles? Scattered across fragmentary after-action reports. Different units, sometimes conflicting dates. No single smoking gun document. The Battle of Raseiniai lasted June 23-27, 1941. 5 days. Dozens of engagements. German reports mention KV tank blocking road, which day. Heavy tank destroyed by 88 mm gun, which tank, which sector. KV-1 or KV-2, they couldn't always tell in combat. Popular history merged all these stories into one dramatic legend, the Crossroads KV. And that's not wrong. That tank was legendary, but it created a blind spot. Most people think 1 insane KV battle at Raseiniai. The reality, multiple KV tanks fought near solo actions across multiple days, and the Germans had to invent new tactics just to stop them. So when people ask, did another KV really do the same thing 3 days later? The answer is yes. And it happened before that too, and during, and after. Raseiniai wasn't one miracle tank. It was a pattern. KVs at Skaudvilė crushing guns after running out of ammo. KVs breaking through Raus's regiment and forcing them to turn around. The Junction ghost blocking 2 battle groups. The famous Crossroads KV, the only one we can document perfectly. That's at least 6 separate solo tank nightmares in 5 days. In June 1941, the German army learned 3 brutal lessons. Your tank guns don't work on these things. Your anti-tank guns don't work on these things. Bring 88mm flak guns to every battle, or don't bother showing up. History remembered the one tank with perfect documentation. But the German 6th Panzer Division's casualty reports tell the real story. Raseiniai was a week-long nightmare of near-invincible Soviet tanks scattered across the battlefield, each one requiring an entire artillery battery to kill. So the question isn't, did it happen again? The question is, how many times did it happen that we'll never know about? Because if 6 kV last stands made it into German records, how many didn't? If you want the full deep dive on the original Crossroads KV battle, I've linked that video in the description. And if this kind of buried military history is your thing, subscribe. Because we're digging up one forgotten pattern. Drop a comment. What other one-time legendary battles do you think might actually be patterns we forgot about? I'm reading every single one. Thanks for watching. And remember, the legend is always simpler than the truth.